Hello, everybody. We are recording live from Lisbon with my good friend Adrienne Oswald of Linden Acupuncture. And we are also in her wonderful bar that she co-owns with her husband. It's called Possible World. And I've been super lucky to eat and drink here in my week-long stay. And today we're going to talk about mocktails and also herbal cocktails from Ayurveda and Chinese perspective, Chinese medicine perspective. So I think this is a really important topic. People want to know what to drink when they're out in a social situation. You know, maybe they don't want to have alcohol, maybe they want to have something that's uplifting or energizing and herbal, or maybe they want to have something calming and relaxing. So you don't feel that you have to, get into the alcohol part of the party. So I've been lucky enough to have Adrian mix us up some shrub, or known as a drinking vinegar. So some of you might know it more as a drinking vinegar, but the Brits originally formed it as a shrub, and then it was moved over to the Americas in the mid 19th century, I believe.
20th century,
20th century it
yeah.
was. Okay, it became really popular to have shrubs or drinking vinegars as well. And we have a rosemary strawberry shrub today. Yeah, so
Yeah.
cheers and welcome,
Cheers.
Adrian,
Thanks
to
for
our
having me.
clink sound, or skål, as we would
Cool.
say in Finland.
Yeah.
So let's take a sip of our shrub.
Very refreshing.
And we did no ice in ours today because Ayurveda and Chinese medicine doesn't really recommend ice. And it's not so hot here in Lisbon today, so we skipped the ice. And we can talk a little bit more about ice and these herbs and these drinks. But why don't we start a little bit with you can introduce, well, I already
Mhm.
introduced you, but you can talk a little bit more about your background for those of you who haven't met you yet.
Yeah, so my name is Adrienne Oswald. I am an acupuncturist. I've been in practice for about 12 and a half years at this point. Um, I work, of course, with acupuncture, but I also work with herbs a lot, as well as dietary, lifestyle, nutrition, kind of the full gamut of what Chinese and East Asian medicine has to offer. And over the years, I've just found it to be so unbelievably rewarding as it helps and changes so many people's lives for the better and in positive ways. And there's so many different little avenues of which it can be implemented into people's lives that are kind of mind-blowing and life-changing and in really positive and good ways. So yeah, I'm currently working in Lisbon. I just moved here about 6, 7 months ago, so I'm kind of really just getting going. I also work in the online virtual space as well, doing consultations and education. In the past, I had practices in Los Angeles as well as New York and San Francisco. So I've been a bit all over the place, but Lisbon is where home is at this current point in the game. So yeah, super
And
happy
I'm
to have you
so happy
here.
to be here with you. I'm
Yeah.
escaping the Finnish winter at the moment. It's about -20 most days back in Finland. So we've had about 12 to 15 degree days here. It's very moist, the climate here, so it's not that Finnish dry that we're usually seeing. And that moisture, the hair and the skin are awesome. Not having to do a lot of abhyanga right now or oiling the hair. So nice to kind of take a break from that for a little bit. Now, why don't we get into first the mocktails, the non-alcoholic, the shrub, for example, that we're drinking now. So when we look at vinegar from Ayurveda perspective, vinegar is going to be a mover. It's going to be warming. It's going to get the digestive juices moving. But I would say for long-term use, we have to be a little careful with vinegar. It can be too heating for the liver, excessive for pitta, for example. So some people will do this apple cider vinegar is quite popular right now. They'll take a shot of that every morning on an empty stomach, and they might feel better for a short period of time. They might notice some of the burping, the bloating, maybe even some of the heartburn goes down for a short period of time, but then they might see with longer term use that it does aggravate pitta and those symptoms can return tenfold and get worse. So I caution people on those apple cider vinegar shots. You really need to have a consultation Ayurveda or Chinese medicine, make sure that that apple cider vinegar is going to be suitable for you and you're not just following some fad to try to heal your gut with the apple cider vinegar. But for, being out in a social situation, you don't want to have any alcohol. They have a shrub on the menu. They have a drinking vinegar on the menu. It's not going to cause an issue to have one drink there. And like we said, we were talking earlier with Adrian a couple nights ago when I was here at the bar helping out a little bit. I got to clean up some plates and do little tables and things. It was fun. That you want to go to a social situation, but I think especially we see this in Finland. There's a lot of pressure to drink alcohol, right? It's like a social lubricant, so it makes it easier to be social, to chat. And sometimes if you're just drinking water or soda water, you feel kind of weird, if you're sitting there at the party, the only one not drinking. But if you have something, nice and pretty and herbal in your
And
hand,
it looks like a
and
cocktail.
it looks like a
So,
cocktail.
you get to feel that kind of sense of belonging with everyone else that is choosing to drink. I think it's a nice go-to.
Yeah, and with the herbs in it, you can also start a conversation. Especially if you're in my course and you're doing the herbal training, you're going to know more about herbs and you're going to be able to say, yeah, I chose to have an herbal drink because of the health benefits of it. The rosemary, for example, that we have here. Rosemary, I've talked about it in the course before. It's so underrated. Rosemary is so wonderful for so many things. I think of
Absolutely. Yeah.
brain specifically in the when we get that brain fog in the heavy, deep winter when spring is coming and we still have that full winter in the body. We want to like squeeze the winter out of the body. You can use vinegar does help with that. This drink would be good for that late winter springtime. And the rosemary is going to help open up that gateway to the brain. It can help also, if you have headaches, but you have to be a little careful if you're getting pitta dominant headaches, which are more frontal lobe, rosemary is heating and warming. So be a little cautionary there. If you're getting more back lobe or temporal headaches, it could be helpful for that. Do you have any input there about rosemary and the brain or headaches from Chinese
Yeah,
medicine perspective?
definitely. The brain is an important kind of aspect that it really helps with clarity as well as memory and just like kind of strengthening, I think, the circulation in the brain region. Another thing I always like to point out about rosemary, it's really great for fertility as well. So it can be extremely warming and kind of nourishing to like your cardiovascular and lymphatic system and just a bit balancing in the hormonal department as well. And I think it has a really good flavor. So flavor is really important. I know in Ayurveda as well as Chinese medicine in terms of herbology. So even having a bit of that flavor kind of activates the properties of the rosemary. I find it to be, it's also like, again, I agree with you about rosemary being very underrated and it's one of the most amazing herbs around, and it's also a kitchen herb that you can use to cook with as well, or just make a tea or a shrub or whatever you want to do with it. But it is such a powerful like antimicrobial, antibacterial, antiviral, so it's really good for those elements as well. So I've always loved it because I feel like it's just kind of a go-to herb for everything, and when you can kind of get that, plus it's again extremely flavorful. You can use it in a lot of different capacities in your food or in a tea, or you could always take a stronger and more therapeutic dose. So yeah, I think it's just a really like nurturing herb that does a lot, doesn't have a lot too many side effects in terms of Chinese medicine. I wouldn't say, I mean, with us, we're always, evaluating, very similar to Ayurveda, evaluating what is going on in the individual's body and what it is that they need in that moment. Also, depending on the seasons and, the history, as well as the current history of their health conditions and any kind of symptoms that are arising. So, but in terms of just like to eat it and cook it and have it in the mix, it's fantastic and it's definitely not going to hurt you. And I really love it in the shrub because it's like a blend of the fruit and the vinegar. So there's a bit of sweetness with it, but then it's got that like a bit of like aromatic kind of pungent that opens up your lungs. I also think of it as a really good lung herb too, as well.
Definitely for lungs.
So,
So those of you who've been had that mold exposure that's people been having in Finland, rosemary is very good for that, which can really affect that brain fog, right? When people feel that brain fog, rosemary is going to activate the pathways to the brain. And like Adrian was saying, a kitchen herb that in cooking and in low doses is going to be fine. You don't have to really think about it too much about if it's safe or not for you. But of course, if you're getting more into like capsule forms, or if you're getting into
mhm.
using higher doses of essential oils and things like that, then it would be good to start thinking more individually if it's suitable for you or not. For example, let's I always like to do these sort of extreme examples of when would not to take it. You are in menopause, you're having extreme hot flashes, you definitely have more pitta type of menopause, you're having acid reflux during that pitta menopause, then you're going to be more cautious with the amounts of rosemary. You still can go out and have a shrub at a bar, but you're not going to be drinking those regularly. You're not going to be taking high doses of rosemary during that time. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I think we're gonna keep sipping on this throughout our talk here, but we also should cover some of the herbal bitters that you find in some of the cocktails at a bar. So if you are going to go to a bar and you feel like having some alcohol, I always go for the bitters first because the bitters have a lot of medicinal properties to them. So we talked before in the course how alcohol is a delivery vehicle for herbs to get in the body. Like ghee is a delivery
Mhm.
vehicle, sugar, honey. There's so many avenues to get herbs into the body. So alcohol is one. We've talked more about herbal wines in the course and how to infuse herbs into the wine. But you'll see these herbal bitters are really popular throughout Europe and the United States as well. And we had Adrian's husband Ian mix us this really wonderful cocktail called Pecan Punch. And you can see that on the Instagram page. There's a video of him making it. And the pecan is very specific to the French-speaking countries of Europe. So we see it a lot in France, Luxembourg. I would say especially like northern France, where we're getting into also Switzerland too, where they're speaking French as well. They're using pecan often with beer. So they're usually, it sweetens up the beer and gives it an herbal flavor with a bit of I would say very orangey undertones to it. And there is gentian. Gentian is an herb that's not classically Ayurvedic, but you could, of course, always look at every herb through an Ayurvedic lens. And the gentian is a very warming herb. It's very good for the digestive juices. That's what bitters do, right? They are aperitifs. They get your digestion ready to receive food. So, Adrian, do you want to tell us a little bit more about gentian from Chinese medicine perspective? Because I think you use it quite a lot, right? It's in a
Yeah,
lot
it
of
is
Chinese
a
medicine
part of the
formulas.
Chinese medicine pharmacopoeia. So it is a very common herb that we use. And it really is viewed through the digestive process support. As Justine was just speaking of, there's a lot of kind of movement that that herb allows. And even with like other heavier herbs that might tend to be a bit cloying, it can like really help keep the herb and like the direction of the herbs going in the right places. The other thing that we consider this herb to be supportive of is the liver. And the liver is such an important part of the digestive system as well. So, when you're also looking at it through a lens of trying to include it in like in alcohol, like in imbibing in some spirits, this is also going to be really helpful, of course, in moderation in all the ways, but it's going to be helpful in kind of keeping things moving and digested with with that implementation into it. But it is a really powerful herb, and we always want to support the liver anyway. So, and that's just one thing I also wanted to say about from a Chinese medicine perspective about the shrub is it has the vinegar in it. And that is something that really helps from our viewpoint in our medicine, that it helps the liver keep a smooth flow. So if there's been a lot of stress, there's a lot of tension, just life is really throwing a lot at you and you're really like feeling a bit overwhelmed. These herbs, both the Genetian, I can never say that,
Gentian.
gentian,
Yeah, yeah.
and also in Chinese medicine, we use a different
Right, you
terminology
have
for
completely
it.
different word
Yeah,
for
yeah,
it in
yeah.
Chinese medicine. Yeah.
So anyway, but also the vinegar, like the properties that it kind of works on is the liver. So keeping that liver flowing, which again, I think that's great if you're going to a bar and you're either going to have a cocktail or even if you're going to have a mocktail, even in a social situation, your liver and you might have a little social anxiety or something, this can kind of help smooth that over. So these are just like great for that. And kind of that like relaxation that you're looking for with a drink at the end of the day and to go to a bar and be social and all of that. It kind of like gives your liver a little breather. And that's always going to help your digestion too. Anytime you have support with your liver, your digestion system will be like flowing a lot smoother. So I again think both of these things are really great for that. And they just kind of help calm your nervous system overall. So, because in Chinese medicine, we have the perspective of if your liver is very congested, you're very stressed, you're very frustrated, you have a lot of resentment, different emotions, anger, things like this, the liver gets very congested. And we all know we have a pretty active world where there's a lot coming at us, there's a lot of demands, a lot of input coming into our life all the time, as well as just even the various things that our liver is processing and fielding in our environment. So any kind of support with these things, these herbs are just really golden, and especially again, if you can bring it into that social setting where you're having a casual mocktail, cocktail, whatever it is, and then you're able to, get a little bit of benefit from that. And then, of course, there's always that really important piece of the social connection of getting out of your house and all of these things and like finding joy in connection with others. And one other thing I'll say about these like kind of liver supportive things is springtime or the transition from the end of winter, which we're kind of nearing-ish, we're almost there moving into spring, it's really just going to help the transition of that because Chinese medicine, like Ayurveda, is very considerate about the seasons and how that goes, and like really trying to implement in different lifestyle practices and nutritional things and dietary stuff as well as herbs. So this is like a good time to start getting things moving, right? Because winter we go inward and it's very stagnant and our lymphatic system gets a little stagnant and just we're cold. So there's a different necessity for herbs and for various types of treatment. But through that kind of stagnation, we want to like start moving things as the spring starts to emerge and things get a lot faster, right? So I think that's a really good thing to think about too with
Yes, I'm
the,
glad that you mentioned that. So we have a lot of crossover with Chinese medicine and Ayurveda,
yeah.
obviously, and we also look at the liver very similarly, with that heat, that anger, that
Mhm.
stagnation, and the digestion also working better when the liver is working better. So when we see, big bellies, things like that, there's often liver
Mhm.
issues there, whether it's emotional or physical. So we treat that the same also with Ayurveda. And yes, we still have a long time to go. We're in January right now in
Mhm.
Finland. We still have a long time to go till spring. But I would say as the winter gets later and moving towards that springtime, people can feel really heavy. Some people don't like spring actually in Finland, I've noticed, because they've carried that weight of the winter and they haven't cleansed to prepare themselves for spring, or they haven't prepared the body for springtime, and they carry that winter into the spring, and that creates that seasonal depression, that spring depression that we see in people. People feel heavy in the body. Even that new light that's coming in spring can be really hard for some people. It feels too strong. They've had that dark winter that they can't
Yeah.
adjust to it. So again, can't stress enough the spring detoxing, the spring cleansing. And
Yeah.
Chinese medicine, I believe, has the same thing, right? You don't want to
Yes.
carry this season, the previous season,
Yeah.
into the next,
Yeah, you
correct?
kind of want to do a bit of a cleansing from the winter energy. So that's why I think even midway through winter, and of course it depends where you are in the world because winter's expressed differently based on location. But wherever you are at that halfway point of winter, you really want to start kind of getting a little bit more movement in there. I think that would make it easier for someone that maybe is uncomfortable in the spring with the energy of spring because there's less like kind of holding of things. And yeah, we have different seasons that function in different ways with our body. So,
Mhm.
and it's in Chinese medicine, we have the consideration of you're wanting to strengthen certain organ systems and elements in your body at specific times of year to make it stronger for other times of year when it's really needed. Like for instance, in the winter, you really want to strengthen your heart energy. And that's kind of where like the yin time comes in and just doing a lot of connection with family through the holidays, but also like inward time and sleep and rest so that you're ready for like that full expression of the summer as well. So it's kind of like some, like what you said, it's like you're moving and transitioning into each season. And then there's just times of the year that
Mhm.
you're able to like fully access what it is you need to like strengthen your body to prepare for different seasons. So I
Mhm.
think these are important considerations,
And
definitely.
in Finland, we're going to look at maybe about March, depending on the year.
Mhm.
Late March to early April, I think is the best time to detox because you're
Mhm.
not in spring yet. Definitely not spring in Finland, but you're in that really late winter phase and you want to prepare for that springtime. And the earlier you can do it in this late March, early spring, the less likely you are to get those spring flus that
Yeah.
most people tend to get. I notice in Finland, the springtime tends to be even heavier for
Mhm.
flus than the autumn time because that heavy winter is just blocked up the srotas or the channels in the body, and there's not that
Yeah.
movement there. And we don't get the natural detox process. We've talked before, if you get a little nose drip in the spring and it's clear, that's the body's ama naturally melting, right? Ama gets hard in the winter, it softens and melts in the springtime. So some people they don't experience any nasal drip. There's no sweat at all. There's just stuck channels, stuck and blockages there. So vinegar will help move those things. Rosemary will help move those things. So I think this drink is really good for that kind of season.
Mhm.
Um, for summertime, rosemary and vinegar, those are going to be a little heating, right? So maybe we want to change up the shrub for the summertime.
Mhm.
Maybe doing
Definitely.
blueberry, because blueberry is considered cooling in Ayurveda. So doing a blueberry instead of a sour berry.
Maybe like basil or
And basil is
something.
not going to be as
Mhm.
heating as rosemary. So it is slightly heating. Same with holy basil or tulsi, as they're in the
Mhm.
same family, but they are not the most heating of the herbal family. So yeah, like a blueberry, basil would be a little bit more on the cooling side, a little less heating than the vinegar and the rosemary.
Yeah, and I think traditionally shrubs generally reflect what is in season as well. So you kind of are working with the fruits and the herbs of that season. And, there's so much wisdom in that with what you're eating and what traditions have eaten over the years during different times of the year to support their bodies.
And rosemary might not survive the Finnish winter, unfortunately. I mean, just will not survive, I should say. Um, but I am experimenting with my rosemary plant in my chicken house for the winter. So there is a window there, there is a heater. I'm experiencing to see will it survive? Because of course the winter kills it, and I really just miss having those huge, big rosemary bushes,
Yeah.
where I have to replant every year in Finland. So it's always so tiny, and I'm just taking a little bit to use in my cooking. I can never take a huge bounty of it. But I'm also thinking the aromatic of it in the chicken house will be healthy for the
Yeah.
chickens as well. And
And
so,
antibacterial,
yes, it keeps it cleaner
antimicrobial,
in
yeah, to
there.
clean it.
Yeah, so I'm experimenting this winter to see.
Yeah.
It's a pretty cold one this year, so we'll see if it survives or not there. And let's talk a little bit more about the ice. So, like I
Yeah.
said, we didn't put ice in the cocktails today. I always ask for no ice at a restaurant.
Mhm.
If I'm having say a Campari on ice, so Campari is also an Italian herbal bitter, which I really like the flavor of it. It has that really nice balance of the sweet and sour, and the way it rolls over the ice cube, I really appreciate. So that's a time where I don't say no ice because the ice really makes that drink. Where a lot of the time I find the ice just kind of waters the drink down, or it's way too cold. Like I'm sitting there like freezing trying to drink it. So think about if you even need ice in your shrub or in your cocktail at all. But from Ayurveda perspective, of course, ice is cold, ice is vata, and some kapha as well, zero pitta related to ice, right? So the the ice in ice cream, for example. We've talked about summer is going to be the best time for ice cream and midday when the digestive fire, when the Agni is the strongest. The ice cream is going to melt and digest the best. But unfortunately, we see in Finland, Finns are eating ice cream 365 days a year. They're eating it really inappropriately, like late at night during kapha time when the digestion is really heavy and slow, and they're putting all this kapha ice cream on top, and it's just sitting there throughout the night not digesting, then creating ama in the body blocking the channels. Would you say is similar with Chinese medicine with ice, or do you have a little bit differences there? And also with the ice cream, I think Finns want to know about the ice cream
Yeah,
part.
yeah. So Chinese medicine is very anti-ice for a couple of major reasons. For one, it's just too cold for the body. Our digestifiers like warmth, our bodies like warmth, and that's what helps circulation. So from a Chinese medicine perspective, we look at ice as very that it just kind of coagulates your energy as well as your tissues, your blood flow, things like this. And so then it tends to cause a bit more pain, as well as just general disharmony in your digestive system, as well as any reproductive systems. If you're trying to get pregnant, if you're having any issues with pregnancy or with, sorry, not pregnancy, with your menstruation, major pain, this is a time to really back off of the ice and definitely the ice cream. So in Chinese medicine, we consider ice cream to just be very cold and very damp. So it's just going to kind of weight everything down again, causing a lot more pain. I believe you call it amla in
Yeah, ama is the
ama,
sticky.
sorry.
Yeah, ama is
Ama
the
in
sticky
Ayurveda, we
byproduct.
call it phlegm or damp. So anytime there's a buildup of that, then like systems start to fail or there's going to be a bit more pain, or maybe the hormones aren't flowing as well because the period, like there's just actual cold in what we consider the uterus, the womb, things like this. So it's a big no in Chinese medicine. We always recommend drinking room temperature or warm water and beverages and warm foods and warm soups and things like this. We do give a little bit more leeway in the summer if the external environment is hot. You know, your body can handle it a bit more than if it's like really hardcore winter. Um, However, that being said, I feel like a lot of people tend to run with that and go crazy in the summer and do a lot of like iced coffees and iced matcha and ice cream and salads and things like this. And again, even if it's really hot outside, that's still going to stagnate your digestive system and your digestive fires. It's going to make it hard for your periods to flow easily. It's going to create more systems of pain in your body as well. And we also consider it to be really hard on the kidney system, which is kind of your baseline constitutional like force energy in your body. So it's really important to keep things warm. Again, occasionally, if you want to have something cold, that's okay. I always recommend, like, if people eat a lot of salads, I always recommend to have a warm tea with it or to have a
Exactly.
ginger tea or something with warming spices, even if it's like in the
Mhm.
salad dressing or whatever it is, just kind of getting the warmth element in there as well to really like counterbalance what the ice and the cold is doing. I generally am similar. I ask for no ice. I prefer my drinks room temperature or warm. I prefer warm foods. I do enjoy a salad, but I try to just keep it all balanced out. And occasionally I might have a cocktail or a shrub even or something like along these lines with a bit of ice. We got to live, so there's a bit of balance that needs to be kind of thrown in there, but it is also really good to be very conscious of how much of it you are actually consuming. And that can just happen really quite easily because we live in a world that loves ice. And there's a lot of ice cream and gelato and cold nature things that people really love to consume. And I understand, but just try to think about the energetics of it and keeping the balance in there. Because I believe that Chinese medicine and what I know about Ayurveda, everything is just really about we're trying to create more balance and harmony. So
Mhm.
if we're kind of giving ourselves these balanced practices, then it's really not a hard goal to attain. So I think it's just good to have this knowledge.
About the ice, yes. Thank
Yeah,
you for sharing your
yeah.
thoughts about the Chinese medicine perspective
Mhm.
there. And Ayurveda, is pretty similar. Like I was saying, the about the having the ice cream at specific hours or seasons is also helpful. And like Adrian was saying, if you want to have the salad, you can even do a little bit more herbs in the salad dressing to help break down that cold salad. Or say you had salad that day, maybe don't also have like ice cream the same day, like separate them out. Say you go out for lunch and you go to a nice terrace. It's a warm summer day in Finland and you have a salad, don't have also ice cream then for dessert. Like change it
Mhm.
up. So it's not
Yeah.
like cold drink, salad, and then ice cream. Like that would be those extreme combos again, where you're thinking it's very hot out, so I'm going to do all cold. I'm going to bring everything cold in. Make sure you still have some warming elements, right? We always want to balance that out there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So I think we shall sip a little more of our shrubs, and
Yes.
I think we covered the topic that we wanted to today. And if you want to private message Adrian and I about the conversation, there's contact details in the notes, in the show notes. So you can see Adrian's information there. If you're in Lisbon, make sure to check out Linden Acupuncture and also Possible World for some awesome small plates and wonderful mocktails and cocktails.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
natural wine
And
too.
natural wine. Yes,
Yeah.
very important. And so thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.
Cheers.
Cheers.